Hello, everyone. This is Tyler here, and it is great seeing everyone. I have been kind of on a hiatus now for some time, and many people here are probably wondering what's been going on and what I intend to do in the coming year. It's been a really good past 6 months. I've transformed mostly for the positive, and that's a whole different video in itself. But what I'm going to focus on here is my intention to go and work and live in China or said East Asian country. I'm not 100% certain right now. There's some options I have: Korea, Taiwan, and of course China, maybe Japan, but unlikely. We can see right now, like the economy, what the state of it is. And I had said this before to people that with President Trump being in office in I'm currently in the north central U.S. And I knew that it wasn't really going to have a lot of at least immediate positive impact him being in office. Now, I'm not saying perhaps long term when we look at where the economy could be, it's difficult to say. Now, with that said, I have gotten to the point of looking at things on a year to year basis and what it's personally doing for me. I don't focus so much on extensions that I don't control. There's a really good YouTuber and author named Andrew Henderson who runs the Nomad Capitalist. Basically, he promotes this philosophy of flake theory and going to where you're treated best, planting and embracing a multi flag approach to your life rather than just be centered in the one country that you were born and raised. And especially for me, when I look at like my life, it's been plenty of ups and downs, like a roller coaster. But I'm at an age and a point now where I'm 33 years old. My original desire when I look back to, say, my mid 20s, I was living in Eastern Europe at that point, and I was going to stay in Europe or at least stay somewhere outside the US permanently. And that obviously got derailed. It was financially motivated. I had to come back to the US. My times of coming back have consistently, they get worse and worse. There's no major improvement made when it comes to just like the economy, the state of affairs, the culture. There's so many issues. Like I said, once again, I'm looking at it from a personal standpoint. What have I been doing? I've been working in the education sector. So I see firsthand the absolute insanity of what the culture has driven. Because I work with kids, I work with children on a day to day basis, with teenagers more so. I see it firsthand. And when I look at a place like China, China is definitely not a place that I have a lot of personal affection for. I don't have this China fetish that we see with a lot of guys from the West, from Canada, US, wherever it might be, or Northeast Asia in general, we could say. There's a lot of things I don't like about the country, about the society, at least from an outside standpoint. I've never actually physically been there. But likewise, there's a lot of positive things going on there. And I look at things, what can it do for me? This is where flake theory becomes critical. And I've looked at different options, different countries I could go to, maybe try to launch a company, launch a business, and try to invest in real estate and really grow, be a big player in that society. But the problem is when you look at most countries, just take, for example, when my brother lives in Argentina in South America. My brother has spent many years in Argentina. I think about 6 or 7 years at this point. He first arrived to Argentina when he was 20 in 2013. And when you look at a country like that, it's also like the US, a country of migrants, of immigration. There was a lot of influence, of course, during the 20th century from Spain, Italy, France, Portugal, Germany, other countries like this, Poland. That's where when you look at like Northeast Asian countries, on the contrary, they weren't countries of migration. They were countries of very ethnocentric ways. That's kind of the irony when you look at like China. That was actually probably more of the imperialistic Asian country of the East, whereas like Japan was the very kind of went both ways. The point in case is that like Argentina, for example, yeah, you can go to Argentina and start like a business of sorts, get domiciled there, and go about day-to-day life and probably be left alone. Or if you have a lot of wealth and assets, you could go there and just stay there and not really have to worry, honestly. Whereas like in Asia, for example, in China, if you really want to start from the ground up and build up, if you don't have a lot to bring with you, probably a better option. There's not a lot of good jobs to be had in Argentina for locals. Now, imagine if you're a non-local, how difficult that is. Whereas when you look at countries like China, absolutely. There's double-digit unemployment rates for local population. But what are you going and doing in China? That's the question that you have to ask yourself. Even if you go as a teacher, for example, you may not be confined to that bubble for very long. And there's potentially other ways that you could utilize those skill sets. In China, it's just like in a lot of other places, we're living in a time of attention economy. It's a digital economy for one. And then there's the attention economy. What that means is that if you stand out, if you create a name for yourself, a place like China, let's just be frank, if you're a white person, black person, you're right off the bat going to have a lot of advantage. You can use those skills to essentially become something like a celebrity, some kind of actor, entertainer. That's what ties into that whole attention economy concept that I just outlined. When you look at how a lot of companies and a lot of the organic and inorganic growth with businesses are relying a lot on this attention economy model. And this is where China's no different than the US to Argentina to most other countries in the world at the moment. And there's great potential there. For me, I don't have any physical work to be at after May. My work is finished that I can physically do on the ground here in the US. So for me, it's like an absolute no-brainer. And I can create content. I can focus on expanding my digital footprint. Yeah, there's things like accessing like these huge Western websites that are hard to access even with VPNs there. But sometimes that's just the sacrifice that's required to be a winner, to be successful. And I have realized what I'm doing here stateside is simply not working. It is not working. And that's the big thing, is that I need to go elsewhere. I got rid of really severe addiction issues that were really persisting in my late 20s to early 30s. And you reach a point where it's like, you just got to be real. I have almost a master's degree, currently working on a PhD. And still, I look at the work situation here and it's just terrible. If you are honest with yourself, it's like, where can I go? And perhaps you may not like the country a lot, the culture, some of the society, it might be uncomfortable, but you sometimes just got to take the plunge and go for it, because you don't necessarily have to stay there long term. I don't necessarily have to stay in China long term. I could go there and do what I have to do, make a lot of money, and this is the other thing too. I really implore people to start opening offshore bank accounts to create a multi-flag approach, because we might reach a day in the US where the government comes and sees people's accounts. It's really hard to know. People think that's absurd, but look how many other countries have done this. Look at Greece some years ago. They reached in and stole a bunch of retirement accounts from people, their own citizens in Greece, and we could likely face the same imminent prospect here in the States. Canada, Australia, the UK, the list just goes on and on. And you look at where there's potential, look at where there's opportunity. That's the key here. Yeah, it's hard. I mean, if you're from a society and you have to change everything, maybe learning new language. Like right now, I'm studying Chinese language. I can speak exceptional Spanish. My Russian skills are quite good, but I mean, if I had my choice, I'd rather not learn Chinese, but I know it's going to really be like 10 times the value of say knowing Spanish. It's going to be Spanish or Russian on steroids. Like that the potential with that, because it's a different mindset, it's a culture where it does have huge impact. So those are things I'm looking at. And when I'm leaving, I don't know exactly my departure from the US. I have to get visa work done. I have to get some other logistical things lined up because when I move, I'm going somewhere to become more successful. I'm not going somewhere to fail and then come back absolutely broke. That will absolutely not have. That will not happen again. And it's exciting for me and to take calculated risks, to put in motion, practice what I preach. I preach the flake theory to people here. And if anyone here has been to China, has lived there, has worked, give me your feedback and tell me what you think of this. Is it a country that you can make things happen and take stuff to the next stratosphere? Tell me below. Thank you guys.